So there's the story, and then there's when the systems process itself. There's an issue with the city system process where, however it's investigated, whatever the chief of police says at that department is what, there's no oversight. So then, what it's supposed to be in a city manager form of government, right? City government is, we'll just do police. We could do any department, right? So the department chair, so the chief of police for the police would then do, his thing, look at the complaint, and then do his investigation, and then give a determination. Then, if you want to appeal that, the oversight is the city manager. And then the oversight of that city manager is city council. I'm very confused about how things don't seem to get to city council, and you're not the only one who says things like, I've never heard this. And so that right there is where I think anything that's actionable, we have to look at beyond just venting and getting people's stories. Fortunately, this is not a lawsuit, right? So we don't need to necessarily gather all of those things like that, but I can see why it would be helpful if we were pushing for some sort of accountability. It's already supposed to function this way. Nobody's asking for anyone to change any policies or rules. We're asking them to actually conduct themselves in the manner in which the policies are written. They're not, and there's no oversight and there's no accountability. I want to be very clear on that.
Yeah. And I think speaking from a person who's been on this council for a short period of time, would be really good to come to the same understanding that I'm sorry there has been such a history in this community. I moved here too and I've lived through it and I know my experience is different than yours. And I'm sorry that we have this history. I recognize this history and I want to do something about changing moving forward. I think that we have started some actions, some activities to try to listen and take into consideration more voices as we make decisions. I think moving forward and current things, right? Because there's nothing, I'm sorry that your experience is what it's been, but in 2017, there's nothing I can do about that experience. What I can do is go forward.
So I want to make sure that we hear that. Callie hears it. Callie's been around, and that she said at every single one of those listening sessions 10 years ago. A lot of us didn't. And so I want to make sure that you understand that that's being heard. This will be brought back and had with a larger discussion, which is hard to come to a consensus to. But we also want to make sure that you hear that what Howell is saying, that's how everybody in that group is. Everybody is like that. Like they're just playing games or perpetrating, nothing's gonna change. So just please give grace as well. Just give grace as well. And we're just doing our best because we don't trust that anything is actually going to change. We feel like we're just gonna come here and keep doing the same thing, and that a box is being checked to show that, look, this is what we did. I also want to differentiate and make sure that the religious land use piece, the lawsuit that the city lost, this is all our money that's going to pay these things, right? Philando Castile is completely different, another whole different issue.
So again, something that we need to move on.
Well, we're not moving on from it. We're not moving on from it to act in the moment. So it's like saying, oh, George Floyd was in 2020, why are we still talking about that? Patrick was just murdered and shot in the street.
I'm not saying why are we still talking about
Okay,
it.
what I'm saying is I think he's mentioning that. So there is if you look at it, when I say that this is odd, such a small city that's been hit, concentrated with all of these discrimination things, you have to look at that system because we're paying into a system where we have to then pay out again when something catastrophic happens to one of our community members or in a different community to a person of color. And so to me, focusing on that over why do they keep bringing that up is going to be important because that will keep getting brought up. You will hear the same stories. That is just the trauma response. That will keep happening. And you have to be trauma informed, especially in a community like this, to recognize that and not take it personally.
I'll tell you this, right? You were not there, right? 10 years ago. No, you were not there, right? There's three of the city council were there.
In different capacities, some one and the same.
Yeah, they were there.
So
All
of the,
these, in these meetings I'm talking about, all three of, out of the 5 of you, 3 of them were in these meetings with us.
And I know Thomas was, and Wendy was, and.
That's how
and
Thomas
building
started.
community, yeah, and building
Wendy was
community.
there, Jen Jensen was there, like,
Jen Jensen.
3, out of the 5, 3 were there 10 years ago, not yet.
Not on council, Thomas and not Wendy were not on council. They were part of.
Wendy was the biggest organizer.
So that's what I'm trying to say. So at the last meeting I mentioned this, Wendy seems to have 3 positions that are leadership with the schools and the city, and sort of serves as a bridge is how I see it from a flowery background. And so with that, there's also confusion in the community of, do we use the Wendy at ISD email? Do we use the mayor, email? And then there's also the piece about people who have bared their soul and bared their trauma to her, and she's found a quiet administrative way of pushing the issue or the family aside. And these are stories that are coming forth, and these are stories that keep getting repeated. And so that's why a lot of people are, they're happy and glad. We have the energy, to come in and talk about this and try to do something where these policies that are already there, let's look at why it is that they seem to be getting enacted differentially. Like, what is going on with that?
Yeah.
Beyond just, oh, I asked my police officer if he wanted to do that, and it's officer discretion. That is just so odd.
so the prosecutor who wants to prove a case thinks that from the very beginning when they knew that is the story of what went wrong, right? So like what happened, what was the course of conduct that was the legal response, and then being able to contrast that with the stated policy.
Are you willing to keep having these meetings more focused on this as we move, forward, basically still the same, sessions? Because there's also the safety issue that Howard keeps bringing up, okay, is a real one. So people,
And this is not feeling safe to call the police, just to make sure we're have the same.
well,
issue.
not feeling safe to interact with the city, that
Oh,
includes the police
bigger than that.
department, right? So it's that whole piece. And so, having your name, right? So when you come up to talk, you have to put your address and your name. People have talked about retaliation. People have talked about their kids getting retaliated against by other people's kids. People have talked about attacks, in the night. I'm like,
These are stories you're hearing.
yes, this is what we're talking about in community to support each other, because people are gonna go crazy.
Yeah.
People have lost it, people have gone crazy, and so I don't want to bring this forward and turn it into like a race thing or immigrant thing. I think that stripping all of that aside, there are policies here that work for certain people. Why is that? It's the same policies. In our experiences, the way that they have been enacted has been differential. Based on what? We don't really know, but there's speculation related to systemic things, And so this is where we sort of are. And so again, it is difficult not to have things turn into vent sessions, but when you put a trauma-informed lens on, and I think that as leaders, this because you're a prosecutor, but I think that as leaders, it's gonna be very important to start to even show that. I think when you guys are on TV representing the city, you're also still representing us, And we do pay taxes. We are proud to be in St. Anthony, in spite of how we get treated, but we need that to change. That's really where we're at.
And I hate that I'm doing this to you guys, because I know that you're tired and you've been through it.
Honestly, I didn't want to complain, but the other family members, I'm like, you know what, I'll go.
And I'm glad that you
personally
did.
didn't want to come again, and I didn't want to start this again, I go on with my life, But when family members are like, how is this kid going?
And
It's
by
not all
it's not just blood members. I want to make sure, we're all okay. I really want
It's
to.
all my aunties,
I
right?
would tell you this, back in the, when the phenomenon still happened on DOJ, there was I don't know if you remember, there was a white woman too. She had moved from the trailer park and moved far home. She was being harassed by the police officers too.
Sorry, who was?
There was a white woman that saved enough money, moved from the trailer park and bought a house here in St. Anthony. They used to harass her too.
that's another thing with the trailer court. Charlie knows I told that, he was here.
She was
And with
my
the
boss.
trailer court, there was a big ordeal because folks felt like they were being targeted and removed, their homes were taken from them by the city, because it's the haves and the have-nots.
I know that, that's
There
how
was
it
also
felt.
white folks there complaining. And
I mean, that,
I
the
absolutely
DOJ
know
knew.
that's how it felt.
That
It's
trailer
not the
park was-
city.
My other
Right.
question, I have a question.
That's the
I have a
understanding.
question, right? I had a car, I don't know if it was you that came to my house. I had a car in my driveway. No, if you're passing by my house, no one can see my driveway. So it's such a steep driveway, right? I had a car, my nephew's car, the tablet's car. But it was this guy's car, so we were waiting for him to get all of the hay from North Dakota. I had a car when I go from the city, and also I had to make that car. That car can't get there. I didn't find out.
And is that recent?
Yeah, I think it was last year.
So this
So
is
I had
happening,
to move that car from there.
so this, I just
Tell
wanna say
me-
this,
tell me how.
this is happening
Is this
not just in
normal?
Howell. No.
I had a furnace that was changed, right? A city inspector came. He checked all that. Come to find out, they didn't do the job right. I had to pay $3,000 for someone from the city or city contractor inspector didn't do their job.
So there are a lot of stories like this, and the stories are very similar, and Charlie, you know, because you hear from me. You know, the stories are similar, I don't know if you've heard Howell's story before, but you know, I have a similar story. So this is not happening to just, because you tend, it's interesting because it feels like you get isolated, you know?
You
And it's
just don't
just
have
happening to
permission
you.
to speak up for anyone.
And then you
Other
start
than
talking to
value.
other people. Yep, and then you go talk to other people and you hear that the same thing is happening, you know? And so there is something there. There is something there, barring us gathering all of those stories just to share so that they know, because I think at the last meeting I was told that I only speak for myself and for Howell. And it's like, no, and even if that were the case, wait a minute, is that not important? So it's sort of, at least, and it's not, you know, and that's the sad part. So there's something where, I don't know, I know that the people who work here are happy, and they should be, because I think that the city manager does a very good job at making sure that the people here are taken care of. I wish that the city manager would do that job at making sure that residents are getting taken care of. And that's where I'm coming from with that. 'Cause
And
it's
we
just
love
not the
living
same.
here. It's not like, you know, like, he said, we love living here. My kids grew up here.
So one of the things, one of the things that I, have encountered in talking to some people is, I know that there's a boundary between what's in the city's responsibility and what is homeowner's responsibility. And I know I talked to someone who, she hired a contractor to do some work, she didn't pull a permit, there was nothing the city was involved in, and she had damage in her home. And she talked to the inspector, and that since the city wasn't involved, there's not a lot that the
So where
city can
is
do
the
in
inspector
terms
coming
of,
from?
right,
Where's the
So
inspector coming
this
from?
is the trap that we tend to fall into, where you try to adjudicate all of the individual incidents.
I'm not trying to
And
do
that's
that.
not really what we're here for.
I'm just trying to,
But it's
say,
just, this
there-
is, she's bringing an experience, and you're telling her, this is not how it works. And then it's gonna end up feeling like it's her fault, you know? When she's bringing an experience of, hey, I've noticed this. Whether it falls into city purview or not, that can be discussed with those who are, you know, this is their job to do, to talk about the different things and tease it out. We don't have to start like picking a specific story and then picking that one apart and making, again, that's the trauma-informed piece that comes, and I apologize, but I keep hearing that, and I have to just be like, please, you know, just listen, you
No,
know?
I think you're right. I think right now the point, whether or not something is factually accurate or there's a misunderstanding is not neither here nor there. The point is you feel a certain way every time you interact with the city service, which is the problem, right? Is that you don't feel supported, you don't feel respected, you don't feel.
Cause when, I'm gonna be honest, I don't remember who it was that came and knocked on my door about the car. I drove around to one thing and I saw a couple of cars. And they were there for a minute. I didn't see them move.
Yeah, it feels like the rules are being applied differently.
And that's just me, that's me, just me, with all these experiences I'm having, you know, and it's like, what happens if
looking at the pattern of conduct that people have been experiencing for the better part of a decade, not more. I don't know how long it's been in a decade. But I presume that this wasn't just from Castile. Right.
Yeah, and my mom used to get tickets about the grass. She collected over 200 and something tickets. And it's just, this is what seems to happen. It's so odd.
So what would,
And there's three
you mentioned
people in
moving
this
forward,
area.
you're in the frustration that you don't feel like we're making any progress, it's been a decade and nothing's changed. What is progress?
I think that I wanna start, I go, I'm a systems thinker, so I say that progress is really looking at what's going on with when you read a policy and you choose to interpret it differently depending on who's called, right? I think that starting there would look like progress. I think that people hearing and seeing that the change is being made. I also think that progress has been made because even if it's like, this is just like, it doesn't have any teeth, there's no enforcement, but something has been made, that's being recognized. So the whole agreement with some, like Hopkins and other cities that made it to the news, St. Anthony showed up. That's like that's like the conversation 2 city council sessions ago. That's something that was talked about, and so that's progress. Being here, you guys actually being here, that's progress. So I count everything, right? And because a lot of us have our different areas that we specialize in, but even Howell can agree with me that we see progress. But what Howell, and this is why I love, that I know Howell, and that she's, here in St. Anthony, because she could be in another community, and then who would I have, but help organize. But what is important is moving past these gestures because they've been done before. Wendy did this, brought in a whole nonprofit group, that came in and got the community, certain groups spun off of that. I think there was, I can't remember the names of it. I think one was SAVIC, the other one was some other SAV group, like, so, yeah, those, like, different things,
This would have to back to the DOJ.
This was happening right after this one, because,
So not the religious land use DOJ thing.
I think Wendy was really instrumental in getting that to the.
Oh, federal lawsuit, sorry, yes.
Oh, thank you.
They're
I was
both
like the
federal
religious
lawsuits.
lands through DOJ. That's, thought I'd missed something rather large. Okay, so uniform application policy is one way, is what progress looks like in one way.
So just understand that we have to take this back and have a conversation so that other people come up with other ways. And I've written it down, but I'm just speaking like I'm saying, for me, I'm a systems thinker. Clearly, what is the issue? The issue is the statute is being read and Officer Charlie is deciding, sorry, let me use a different name.
Officer Bob?
No, that's the three.
Officer Bob?
Officer Bob, I'm not asking about you, okay, so there might be one, because they won't tell me what, but Officer Bob looks at the statute, goes, he might interview, he might not, depends on how he feels, but he'll talk to the white neighbor, and then he'll, so it's so strange, and then you ask the questions, and it's like, we investigated thoroughly, I watched body cam footage, and did you know that last week, Howell called us about a cat, it's just a cat. And this is the response that people are getting. And it doesn't seem like there's any oversight. So they're stripped of the human dignity in access, not on the scene. First of all, stripped of human dignity by neighbors, okay? Then stripped of human dignity by the responding department from the city. Then stripped of human dignity when they go through the city process. And then stripped of human dignity when they talk to electeds. Am I missing the group?
Wait, what, can you take me through the groups? So, neighbors.
So with neighbors, so the attack happens, right? The crime happens, and then either you get criminalized or there is no crime. It's deemed not a crime.
Okay.
So the officer, right? So there's the neighbor, the officer, and then there is the city. So city management, like the city process, right?
Yeah, are we being attacked by our neighbors? Is Is that the first
In
step?
a, yeah, Gallo, for example, so in a lot of cases, it is, it's people who live in the area. And again, everybody has, you know, a right to their beliefs, I mean, this is America, right? But when it crosses into becoming a crime, that's where I think that needs to be addressed, but then there's fear of litigation, and I guess they don't think that people of color can sue here, I don't know. But it just seems to be like choices are being made as to how to interpret policy and apply it based on something that we don't understand.
And you
So
feel that
people
way
have those
about
questions.
police and city response?
So the entire city, so there's different departments. We could use like the Public Works Department, for example, right? Or I think, coding has been moved to 5, for example, code enforcement, that's a big one. So how was example? Who called it in? Who decided to like enforce that the way that they did? Who decided to spray the tree with paint, orange paint, when they tie an orange like plastic bag, for example, around the white neighbors, you know, trees that are gonna be cut down? Things like that happen in our city routinely. It's just odd. It's just odd. For example, well, people's kids are playing in my yard and tearing up my flowers, okay? And the response, depending on who you are, how you show up, how you look, is, or whose ear you have of the at large numbers, and that's iffy too, becomes, it's put back on, well, why aren't you letting kids play in your yard? Like, what's wrong? Like, why wouldn't you want kids to play in your yard? And at the end of the day, I mean, there's the 5 bundles for a reason. We are all able to have our own weed if we're not breaking the law. So it becomes really weird, and crimes get turned into personal grievances. For example, code violations, right, get turned into personal grievances. Another example. And there's more stories, and they don't involve the city, they involve like the school, which is separate, I know, it's just, we can't tell sometimes, you know, but I'm saying, you know, so I wanna keep it just to the city, for me personally, but I think be prepared for people to talk about both.
For Gallo, I don't know, you know Gallo? So Gallo, before the signs in his house, used to shovel the driveway.
This is the gentleman I met when I was chatting, he was here the last meeting.
He used to shovel in neighborhoods, you know, there's where for the plastic up to come out, that's Gallo. Until they started attacking him, and of course, and he put up signs on his house. You know, but the Gallo before, no one talks about that. Those neighbors used to have his keys.
Gallo is one of those stories of the community members who've been most like traumatized by the process of the city, like shooting him up and spitting him out. So,
Thomas went through the same thing.
yeah,
To the
so,
point Thomas' neighbors moved, sold the house. The Thomas that sits there,
Sorry, what happened? Tell me.
I had an incident with a neighbor, to the point the neighbor moved. Sold the house, because they didn't wanna deal with Thomas, they didn't wanna see Thomas. So you have a city council member that has the same experiences.
because it's no longer that way for him, he's not gonna speak to that, we just have to accept him.
No one talks about what happens before Valley has these signs, you know? No one talks about why I don't like coming to the school building, this city office or anywhere. No one talks about those stories.
So how can we start talking about it?
I think looking at the listening sessions, like you said, looking at the policies, it looks like there's a lot of writing, maybe trying to figure out like what are those differences, maybe you've received, emails, you know, that sort of say something from a community member trying to say something, and you wanna take a second look at it instead of just like, oh, this was the wrong process. But we also have homework to do, and getting people together is challenging, period, you know, not just in this time. And then we'll just keep coming to the listening sessions and hopefully keep you updated, and hopefully it works both ways. I know that these community listening sessions were for the federal actions that were happening, and Operation Paris is still in effect, but I think that what makes us very unique here in St. Anthony is that there is such a large community of immigrants or pay taxes, who involved in the system. Some share the same skin color as you, but identify as and are treated as. So, there's a lot there, and it's not just gonna happen now. I do wanna say that this is the first time that it sounds like there's been, do you feel heard at least partially?
Yeah, there's some change already,
So thank you for being here. I wanna make sure that you hear that, because it's just like it's daunting and irritating for us. It's like, this is their effing job. Why the hell we gotta keep coming here? I think that we're all human and we understand that you really don't have to be. You could just say F you too. Like the other examples that we haven't been told F you too. So I wanna acknowledge that. I appreciate that. You're here, all three of you.
Yeah, I don't think we want, I mean, I know we don't want 40% of the population to continue on feeling as though they don't count, feeling like they are not being counted.
I believe that.
Yeah, and so, I know it feels like stories, I feel,
How do we keep them as an active and not
yeah,
let them move?
I think one of, I mean, this is something that we'll figure out as we go along together, but the first thing that comes to mind for me is when these incidents happen, that it doesn't stop at just events, right? That is an email to your council members, because if you, before I met you guys weeks ago, really, I knew none of, my parents are immigrants, but they are old and don't, they stick to their own people that they know and don't leave that much, and so outside of the immediate neighbors, don't. Yeah, and they have delightful neighbors, and so they have only good experiences, which, thank goodness, because someone went after my, then that hasn't always been their experience, and I lived with them, and that wasn't their experience, and we didn't have kind of, when you get seated at a restaurant next to the bathroom, coincidentally every time you go out, right? I get it, I do, and so, but I also get that it's easy to sort of not even notice after a while, right? You're just so used to being slighted that it's almost par for the course, and it doesn't even faze you. But if we don't hear about it, then we can't make it everybody's problem. And it should be everybody's problem, because this isn't your community, the Brownfield community, or like, this is ours. And if we want to be 10,000 people strong, then we need to hear all of the good of that, right? It can't just be the privilege of speaking out about how well things are going, or who are annoyed because someone left their garbage cans on the street for too long, right? Who have that set of problems. We also need to be hearing about the stuff that is uncomfortable and make people feel bad to talk about, because that's the stuff that we need to fix.
And I think that one thing, please don't forget that there is a thought that that's getting suppressed, like that's not going past a certain piece, and it's getting, especially the police stuff, is getting kept. Sometimes things don't even get to investigation. You know?
From like a police.
Yeah, sometimes things don't even get to investigation. It's serious, and there's time. I don't know, that was
My thing is, I don't want the kids 10 years down the road to be the ones
In your chair, having the same conversation.
calling them to, because, you know, I want to read it because we had an agenda, so. You know,
I'm not supposed
you know what I mean, we're taking so much out of everyone's time, and 10 years down the road, I don't want to see my kids somebody else. And we did have to set a couple of mayor and mayor insults that comes on the list back 10 years ago. And these meetings.
I think the thing that's important to recognize is two of them are in very different positions. They were in positions.
It doesn't matter if they were not in office. They were in these meetings.
They were
10
over
years ago.
It's
10
why,
years ago, we
it's
were
why Thomas
sitting.
ran for city council.
And he was
We were
supported
sitting
by
like this 10 years ago. I'm not in the city, I'm in the cities, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter if they were in the city, they were not. 10 years ago, we had 3 members. 10 years ago, we were sitting here, having the same positions that we have. And my kids were not having the same conversation. You know, and I think it's time that people, thank you for some of those, serious. I mean, it's
Okay, I'm always serious.
you say, you know, but it's time to
Sarah
move
was
on.
sitting here before I was. That's the thing, no, that's the thing.
You know?
I think we all live on the same street. Like Wendy and I, it's almost. don't want the nieces and nephews having to stay here. I know damn sure my kids would have to stay right there and stuff, you know, but
There's so much we can do together, you know.
It truly is, and I very much, I know this is not your job and you don't wanna be here, but I'm glad that you are, so that we can.
I'm tired of hearing families moving, you know.
Thank you so much for coming.
I can't believe I didn't get to shout today. Why are you guys so reasonable? I said, I can't believe I didn't get to shout today. Why were you guys so reasonable? But that's my sense of humor. It's messed
I
up.
appreciate it.
It's messed up. It's gallows humor, so.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
And if
all.
you guys are willing, like, I would love to meet if folks feel comfortable, I'll go wherever you want me to go.
We'll bring it into the group and see.
And let me know.
Don't hold that. We'll bring it to the group because people have been stabbed in the back before by people who are sitting up there. So,
Thank you guys so much.
Have a good night.
thank you all.
Thank you.
On to the next.